Hello, everyone. Today I want to share with you one of the greatest lessons Warren Buffett has ever given us. I'm going to narrate what he says in the Terry Business School interview from 2001. Okay? Let's go. Today I want to talk about something very important. I have a question, one of those I'm always asked, and I like to answer it in a very simple yet powerful way. The question is, who should I work for after I graduate from college? I always say the same thing. The real thing to do is to start working for someone you admire. That, my friends, is what truly matters. It's not about the company name on your resume or the starting salary you're going to earn. I remember one time I was at Harvard and a student picked me up at the airport. He was nice, full of energy, and he told me he was about to graduate from Harvard Business School. He said he wanted to work for some of the biggest consulting firms in the world. I asked him, "Is that what you really want to do?" And he said no. He said he wanted to do it because he thought it would be a good move for the resume, something that would make him look perfect on paper. So I told him something he would never forget. Your plan sounds a lot like saving sex for old age. It doesn't make much sense. When are you going to start doing what you really love? I told him and the other students in the group. Go work for the person you admire the most. You can't go wrong with that. If you wake up in the morning and go to work for someone or a place you truly respect, you're going to have a lot more fun. And guess what? The dean called me a few weeks later, asking, "What did you say to those kids?" He was impressed with the way I had spoken to them. Now everyone's talking about being self-employed, right? But what I really want you to think about is this. Imagine for a second that I made you an irresistible offer. And that offer is that you can choose any one of your classmates, someone you probably know well, and for 24 hours, you get to reflect on it. Here's the deal. You'll receive 10% of that person's earnings for the rest of their life. And you need to think, who would you choose? Now, you can't pick the person with the richest parents. That doesn't count. You have to make this decision based on merit, on the person's qualities. I bet when the time comes to choose, you wouldn't pick the student with the best grades, right? There's nothing wrong with getting good grades, but grades aren't everything. What really makes a difference is what's behind that. When you think about who would be a great success, it's not just about intelligence or energy. It's not about being the best looking or the most athletic. It's about qualities like integrity, honesty, generosity, and even the willingness to do more than your share. Those are the qualities that come from within. They're your choices. And that's what will take you far. These are the qualities that define the true winners in life. I want you to think about something here. The real difference between the greatest winners and everyone else comes down to one thing: habits. The habits you choose now. And I'll tell you, when you get to my age, you start to realize that the habits formed back then, in your youth, are the ones that shape who you become. Ben Franklin, one of the greatest thinkers in history, used to say that habits can be too light to be felt at first, but over time, they become too heavy to break. I see it all the time. People in their 50s or 60s stuck in self-destructive habits because they didn't know how to change when they still could. But you know what's amazing? You have that chance right now, at your age, to create the right habits. So when you think about the qualities of the kind of person you choose to share life with and earn 10% of their income, look at yourself, ask, do I have those qualities? And if you find something in yourself that you don't like, remember, you can change. That's something Ben Franklin did. He chose people he admired and tried to be like them. He knew that if he behaved like those people, others would admire him too. And that's the key. The goal is to be the kind of person you'd want by your side, someone you'd admire. And I can guarantee you that everyone here has the ability to become that person. In the second part, he continues to explore the idea of how difficult it is to predict which companies will succeed in the long run, even in industries that appear to have a bright future. Warren Buffett talks about the importance of understanding what lies within your circle of competence, meaning what you truly know and understand well. He shares an example about the automotive and airline industries, where many companies disappeared or failed despite being part of sectors that, at first glance, seem promising. He also emphasizes that while some industries may look promising, identifying the winners in such broad and uncertain areas can be extremely difficult. aviation and the automotive industry being prime examples. He uses the example of television to reinforce the point that even though the industry experienced growth, many companies failed to profit significantly from it. This demonstrates that even major technological innovations may not result in good investments. He highlights that when choosing a company or industry to invest in, it's essential to evaluate the economic factors that determine success or failure. But it's not just about identifying the winners. It's equally important to understand who the losers are, as that can often be easier to predict. In addition, he mentions that, in the end, what truly matters is character. Choosing to associate yourself with people you genuinely admire and focusing on personal and ethical development. He suggests that by developing good qualities, you become someone others would want to invest in, thus building a solid foundation for your future. The core message remains: success isn't just about economic predictions, but also about the personal choices and values you adopt throughout life, such as integrity, initiative, and honesty. In the third part of the speech, Warren Buffett focuses on the concept of a company's intrinsic value and how he evaluates investments. He begins with Coca-Cola as an example of a business that, over many years, has proven to be a valuable investment. He points out that the value of a company is not just about its popularity or size, but its ability to generate future cash flows. In Coca-Cola's case, this means the enormous number of drink servings sold every day, reflecting the brand's long-term success. Buffett explains that to assess the value of a business, the investor needs to consider how much money the company will generate in the future and when those cash flows will occur. He calls this calculating the intrinsic value of the business. This calculation is done by discounting future cash flows at an appropriate rate to understand their value in today's terms. According to him, the value of an investment is directly related to the return it will generate over time. Buffett compares evaluating stocks to evaluating bonds, saying that the cash flows from a bond are easily predictable, whereas stocks require more detailed analysis because the cash flows are not written directly into the stock itself. Therefore, the investor's job is to project those future cash flows and determine whether the current stock price justifies the expected return. The central question, he says, is always, how much money will the company generate and when? Buffett also stresses the importance of long-term thinking. He uses the example of Berkshire Hathaway, his own company, to illustrate how the ability to generate returns grows over time. He asks whether it makes sense to buy the company for $105 billion today and how much value that amount could generate in the future. Buffett also emphasizes that many internet companies don't allow him to reliably calculate intrinsic value. He explains that without a clear understanding of future cash flows, he prefers to stay away from those investments. When asked about formulas or strategies to calculate intrinsic value, Buffett says that although he's written about it in his annual letters, the essence of investing lies in understanding how many birds are in the bush, representing future opportunities, and how certain the investor is that those opportunities will actually materialize. He compares this to the concept of present value, where the value of something in the future is discounted based on current interest rates. In summary, Buffett talks about the importance of deeply understanding the value of a company based on its future cash flows and the uncertainties tied to those flows. For him, investment success comes from the ability to accurately evaluate those cash flows and make decisions based on solid data, not speculation. Warren Buffett truly reflects many of the principles he follows in both his investments and his life. Let's highlight some of the key points he shares. 1. Learning from mistakes. Buffett shares that one of his biggest mistakes was acquiring Berkshire Hathaway, a struggling textile company. He learned that even though he bought it at a cheap price, it was still a bad business. Time, which should have been his ally, became his enemy, making the mistake even worse. This experience taught him to prioritize buying great businesses at fair prices, rather than bad businesses at attractive prices. 2. Mistakes of omission. He mentions that, throughout his journey, his biggest mistakes weren't bad actions, but missed opportunities. One example was not investing in companies he understood well, like Fannie Mae, which resulted in a significant loss of potential gains. These omissions are harder to identify, since there's no visible cost. But Buffett feels them deeply. Often they're the ones that have the greatest impact on his financial path. 3. The value of big opportunities. Buffett emphasizes that throughout life, big opportunities will come, and they must be seized. He believes it's more valuable to focus on a few long-term investment decisions rather than spreading energy across many small ones. By concentrating on truly important opportunities, he was able to achieve the extraordinary results he's known for, the discipline of making good decisions. He talks about how, over the years, the discipline of avoiding impulsive decisions has become even more important as his fortune has grown. When he had less money, he had to be more selective, selling the stocks he liked the least to buy more promising ones. Today, he has more money than ideas, but that same discipline of making careful decisions remains a key part of his investment strategy. The punch card concept. Buffett shares an interesting analogy. Imagine you had a punch card with only 20 punches, and you could only make 20 major financial decisions in your entire life. That approach would force you to think very carefully about each decision, helping you avoid impulsive or risky actions. He suggests that this kind of discipline is incredibly valuable. It helps you make wiser, more thoughtful decisions, leading to better long-term outcomes. These points reflect Warren Buffett's philosophy on investing in life. His focus on discipline, learning from past mistakes, and valuing big opportunities are lessons that can be applied to any area of life, not just business. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about how to make smart financial decisions, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss new content. Share your experiences and questions about investing in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.